Welcome back to the Carton Show. We have your early morning headlines, and there is some shocking news about that man, Shohei Ohtani. The Dodgers star is embroiled in a gambling scandal that involves transfers from his bank account to a known booking operation. Craig, there's a lot of details here.
Yeah.
What do you make of this shocking report about Shohei Ohtani?
So they made a calculated mistake yesterday, the Ohtani team did. If I can just walk you through it real quick. As this story started to break over the course of the day yesterday after the opening game of the season, in which the Dodgers beat the San Diego Padres, that guy right there, just so you know, is the interpreter.
Right.
All right. So just to give you some background to what's going on here, all right? So the deal is this: they first come out and participate in a 90-minute interview, and the Ohtani camp says we're going to let the interpreter talk to the press. So a number of reporters get an opportunity to sit down, and at the time, the answer was that Shohei Ohtani was being a great friend, and the reason you see bank wires from his account to the account of a bookmaking operation, which started this entire story because the federal government is now going after this bookmaker in Orange County, California, and in their due diligence and investigation into an illegal bookmaking operation in California, they saw a couple of wire transfers from a bank account that is owned by Shohei Ohtani. And there's two particular wire transfers, both for $500,000, that go from Ohtani's personal bank account to the bank account of this alleged bookmaking operation, all right? So that's how this all starts. So the Ohtani team gets together and they decide we have to respond to it. So how are we going to respond to it? And they decide, it was a major mistake, that the way to respond to it is to allow the interpreter to be interviewed by the press over the course of an hour plus. And in that interview, he takes full ownership of losing about $5 million by wagering. He goes on to say in this interview that he never wagered on baseball, and he did know that wagering was illegal in the state of California. More on that coming up in a minute. So they think the story is neatly put together. This guy takes ownership of it, and we make Shohei Ohtani look like the most gracious friend a guy could ever have, because he writes the check to cover his buddy's ass. All good, right?
Yeah.
Except that it's not all good. Why is it not all good? Because Major League Baseball and the Major League Players Association redid their collective bargaining agreement and specifically altered their gambling policy. The gambling policy for Major League Baseball is that players are allowed to gamble legally, and that word is in there. Legal wages are allowed on every sport other than baseball, obviously. They even can't participate in fantasy baseball if money's involved because of the obvious impropriety or the look of there being an issue. So when they allow this guy to come out and say that Ohtani wired money on my behalf, they put Shohei Ohtani right in the crosshairs, and here's why. Part of the collective bargaining agreement is that you cannot associate with known bookmakers. And as soon as you send money to a known bookmaker, you have violated the collective bargaining agreement in Major League Baseball. You've now effectively tied the hands of Rob Manfred, the commissioner, and the rest of baseball, because you've taken ownership that you indeed sent the money from your account to the account of the bookie. So that dawns on them, the light bulb goes off, which to me means Major League Baseball picked up the phone and said, are you guys stupid? You're now taking ownership of the fact that he's wiring $1 million over the course of 2 transfers to a known bookmaker. We have to suspend you. So the Ohtani camp then flips. They hire a law firm. The law firm then comes out and says that Shohei Ohtani is the victim of a $5 million fraudulent scheme, embezzlement, a crime. But now what happens is that guy right there, who Ohtani is buddy-buddy with, and according to every story I saw, best friends with, you're now putting that guy out on federal charges, on criminal charges of wire fraud, embezzlement, and theft. So we're going to find out right now just how close that friendship is, because that guy is now going to be paid to keep his mouth tight and potentially do federal prison time to protect Shohei Ohtani. The one part of the story that the Ohtani camp cannot get around is the fact that there are 2 wires that a reporter saw.
Yep.
I'll believe the reporter actually saw it. There are 2 wires, $500,000 each, that go from Ohtani's account, meaning he signed off on it, directly into the account of a bookmaker. I don't know how you walk that back. And it is black and white, crystal clear, that warrants an immediate and indefinite suspension for the player. If we're going to take the threat of a gambling scandal seriously in the 4 major North American sports and obviously the collegiate level as well, then baseball has to act swiftly. Here's the problem. This is the highest paid guy in the history of the sport, and let's not color it any other way. He is the face of Major League Baseball because he's arguably the greatest player we've ever seen. Major League Baseball now has to make a decision. Are we going to suspend the face of the league for violating the collective bargaining agreement? And there is no wiggle room on this. He violated the collective bargaining agreement. And you can talk day and night about how I didn't make the bets, he made the bets, I was just covering for him. You can make the argument he stole the money from me, which carries no water at all because the wire came from your account. And that's the other part of this. This isn't like Willie Colon going into my pocket, taking a $20 bill out of my pocket and stealing it from me. This is a bank wire. You can't go into a bank and send $500,000 from my account anywhere without me signing off on it. So Ohtani's in a bad spot. He put himself in the bad spot, and now you're putting this interpreter in a spot where are you willing to go to prison to support and keep your friend out of trouble? And there are not a lot of people that are willing to do that, and that's our reality.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm listening to all this, and I don't know if there's, to your point, a way out of this, other than his friend pretty much going up the road, right?
Yep,
at the end of
that's
the day,
only way out, because his friend's going to have to say, I forged this signature on the bank wire transfer. And let me tell you something,
That's
for
a
a
tough
guy
story to tell.
who has lived in a compulsive gambling world, who has sent millions of dollars of wires all over the country, because I've lived it and I've done it. You can build a relationship with a bank, absolutely. And banks from time to time, based on those relationships, will do things they won't do for average people walking in the door. But you are not sending $500,000 wire without the owner of that account blessing your ability to send that money. And that's where Ohtani's in a bad spot.
And I think you hit another thing on the head. You put Robert Manfred and this league in handcuffs right now because of the history of gambling, especially with Pete Rose and everything he's dealt with. So now if you don't, he's the face of baseball right now, he's a big-time star, you have to act swiftly, you have to act now because the season is underway and we're going to American soil, and every time that man's in front of a camera, it's not going to be what he does on the diamond, it's about what was your involvement in this.
And the story can't go away quickly because there's a federal investigation into the bookmaker, and now you've got the accusation of wire fraud and embezzlement and theft, so that's got to be investigated now. And the only way that this has an ending that doesn't end up with Shohei Ohtani being suspended by Major League Baseball would be that interpreter putting himself on 1,000 swords with the hope of a payday at somewhere down the line from Ohtani, saying, I forged this signature, I pretended I was him, I signed off on it, and I'm going to take the punishment that comes with wire fraud.
But the feds are going to talk to the banks, too.
Yes.
And I honestly don't think they can tell that story. It's not going to work out. But I'm not here to speculate about that. But this is the thing that I feel when I saw this story is 5 years ago, the leagues were not in bed with illegal gambling. And then this is literally the worst case scenario. The face of your league is embroiled in a scandal that involves illegal gambling. This is when the NBA, the MLB, NHL, and NFL got in bed gambling and said, you know what, we're all going to do this. We're gonna embrace gambling. We're going to start putting in our coverage. We're going to put the lines out there. We're going to do the gambling thing. This is literally their what-if scenario.
Now, here's the other problem with it. You know, they want people to be naive. You know, you've said you were naive about some of this stuff as well, which I respect. And here's the real problem with it. As a compulsive gambler who now counsels young gamblers, especially college-age kids who are gambling, and young adults, right? Because that's the life I've led, and I use this platform to try to help and pay my stuff forward and help other people. Here's the reality. If you're a compulsive gambler and you're in hot water, and you're losing game after game after game, whatever you're betting on, and you're desperate to get whole, you're desperate to try to get some of that money back, the way a gambler thinks, a compulsive gambler, it's totally irrational to non-compulsive gamblers, but to a compulsive gambler, this is a rational thought. Well, I'm down $500,000, so the only way to get out of it is to bet myself out of it, which is not the way to do it, obviously, right? If you're in a major hole financially from gambling, you're going to try to make a bet on something you feel like you know better than anything else.
Sure.
If you're Shohei Ohtani and or the interpreter, because the one thing we don't know yet, Ohtani might have been the one betting. And it's okay to bet as long as it's not on baseball. But we don't know if Ohtani gambles or not.
Legally.
It seems like it makes sense that he would be, but I want to put that out there. We don't know. But if I'm in a hole financially and I'm going to try to bet myself out of it, what am I going to bet on? I'm going to bet on something I feel like I know the best. I'm going to bet on something I might have inside information on. So if the interpreter is the sole gambler here, and I find it hard to buy that, but let's go with it for a moment, and you're $500,000 in the hole, or $3 or $4 or $5 million in the hole, what's the next bet I'm going to make? Well, heck, I know that Mookie Betts isn't playing tomorrow night. Yeah. I know that Ohtani's elbow's bothering him. I'm naturally going to bet on baseball because I know that the best. And beyond that, I'm going to bet on a Dodgers game because I got all the information that isn't public. So it's a very huge leap of faith for you to ask somebody to believe that I bet myself into a $5 million hole and never bet on baseball to get out of it. I don't accept that, and I live the life. So I think this story is going to get bigger and bigger and bigger, and it is not going to end well for anybody involved.
Is there a situation where they comb through the locker room and see who else is a part of this?
I think there's going to be an investigation into all of it. Now, sure, there has to be. Yeah. Because you've got a guy that's in the locker room that might be, we don't know for sure yet, might be trading on information that only he has. And that's the worry. That's the scandal that every league is trying to avoid. A guy betting on or against his own team or a team he's affiliated with because he has information about that night's pitcher, or maybe the guys were out late last night and they're all hungover, or whatever the case may be. But baseball's in a spot now, because if you're going to tell me that the guy with more hits than anyone else in the history of baseball isn't eligible for the Hall of Fame because he bet, and Pete Rose absolutely bet on Cincinnati Reds games. There's no disputing that anymore. You have to come down hard and tough, because this is the one thing that can rip the fabric of a sport totally apart, a betting scandal. And this scandal, if you told me he was the 25th guy on a roster that we never heard of, sweep it under the rug, guy gets suspended for a year, it's all good. This is the guy. This is the face of sports in this country.
But on top of that, the Dodgers are projected to go to the World Series.
Right.
Alongside the Yankees with Ohtani.
And don't forget, he got a $700 million contract. Financially, marketing-wise, for the good of the game, none of it is good. And this is a worst-case scenario for Major League Baseball. And this is what they all worry about. But what bothers me the most is that Ohtani can afford the brightest and best lawyers and advisors in the world, and they foobarred this. When they allowed that interpreter to speak to the press, and they allowed the press to see the wire transfers, so we can now confirm 100% that 2 wires at least went from Ohtani's account to the bookmaker, they made it far worse. Yeah. And they made a terrible mistake. And let's just play it out. How do you go from, we're going to let the guy talk to the press, the guy's going to own all the wagers, and tell the world that Ohtani's a great guy who bailed me out financially, and then when we realize we just got Ohtani suspended, we're going to change our entire story from it was all this guy and our guy's the greatest guy in the world to, no, we didn't give him any money, he stole all the money. Like, come on.
Well, the feds are going to investigate the wire transfers, and they're going to find that Ohtani was behind them, I believe. I mean, it's going
they came from his account.
It came from his account. There's going to be audio tapes, videotapes. They confirm the person that sends the wire transfers. This is going to get uglier and uglier. This is not the person.
Look, when I was gambling millions and millions of dollars at casinos all across the world to play blackjack, I wired tons of money from my account to these places, right? I didn't wire from Willie's account or from your account, and no one could wire them for me. Right. I had to sign the piece of paper to get that wire sent. That's how it goes. I don't care how big a celebrity you are. You got to sign on the dotted line to send your money anywhere. And Ohtani's in trouble. And baseball's got a problem because they don't want to suspend him, But how do you not suspend him?
You have to.
You got $1 million going from his account to a bookmaker's account. Now, one other quick thing. It has never been illegal to place a wager in this country with a bookie. It is illegal to be the bookmaker because of the vig they charge. So I want to be clear on that. People are like, oh, Ohtani's going to prison. No, he's not. Ohtani's bad judgment. Ohtani has to deal with Major League Baseball and a possible suspension, but he has done nothing afoul of the law. And I want to be clear about that. Hey there, thank you so much for watching The Carton Show. You can subscribe right here to get all the latest bits and segments from the show. And by the way, while you're at it, we have a lot of great shows on FS1, so check them out too.